Clear? They can operate independently. Each independent candidate there behaves like an independent operating system where it is trying to contain its own, what you can say, CPU processing, RAM processing, application, and its dependency. Clear on this? Ranga, Divya, Nayak, you need to catch the ideology, guys. Ideology is more important. Ideology. Then we'll understand the subject. So, okay. Nice. So take down this diagram quickly. So I hope all four terms came actually. So we came to know container engine. We came to know container image. And we came to know the containers. So containers is what customer will access, guys, or your end user will access. So this, whatever you're talking, this one, right? So this one will be accessed by your end user. End user will access. So this part is entirely end user access. All right, please take down this diagram. Okay, so I hope you guys have taken down this diagram. Anyway, we'll go back to the architecture. So, but however, I want you to understand, make sure these terms you understand now. Now, let's go ahead with the Docker installation. So Docker installation is super easy. Now, before installing the Dockers, two important points you should know. There is no pre-requirement. For example, Jenkins required Java. Ansible required Python. Docker does not want anything. So we are not worried. But only trouble here is whatever the Linux machine that you have chosen or whatever you're going to do on that Linux machine, the kernel version should be greater than 3.10. So before proceeding, whatever the Linux machine that you are working, please make sure that it is greater than 3.10. So 99%, most of the machines will be 3.10 only because 3.10 versions are somewhat older actually. So it is trying to tell you that, okay, make sure that you don't use older. So we'll create a new clone machine to practice our class. So 31B Docker -server. Next, we'll clone. And settings, whenever you create a new machine, as you guys know, refresh. Okay, start this. So root, password, NMTUI, Activate a connection, activate, back, hostname hyphen capital I, it is 10 now. 192, so some 10 value is coming. So let me connect. Now in a real time, guys, the Docker server will be on static IP. So for our practice, it is not required to set up. But in a real time, keep in mind that machine will be on static IP. So I logged in. So before adventuring, what we should do? Tell me, guys. What we should do now? Yeah, you need to check the kernel version. Otherwise, it will not cooperate. Uname -r. This is a command. So it is greater than or equal to 3.10. So we are good, right? So it is good. So we can proceed. Now, how do you proceed? Simply, the Linux distribution contains the Docker by default, so you can get it. So yum install Docker. Simple, most easiest one. Yum install Docker. And there is one website, guys, which I want to show you. So if you're not carrying a laptop or a desktop with you, when let's say you're traveling somewhere, you want to enjoy playing with your Dockers. So this is one nice site, which I recommend you to try when you don't have a laptop with you. You want to practice? This is a nice one. So this is a free website maintained by the Docker company where I don't think Docker company, I think third party. Let me check. What happened to this? It's not coming. Okay, it came. Okay, this is Docker only, officially maintained by Docker. So just see what I'm doing. Okay, not be worried about this. So you can practice here all the commands of Docker. So click on instance and you'll have a terminal and you can practice all Docker commands here. Okay, but this makes sense after you know little Docker. Maybe after 2 or 3 days, you can start using this. Okay. So not to be worried at this point. It is free of cost only. Now let's go back to the Docker. And I think, yeah, Docker is ready. Press Y. And one good thing about the Docker is the best award for the documentation goes to the Docker only. In DevOps tools, the best documentation award, you can give it to the Docker. You do not require a teacher also, or you do not require a trainer to teach the Docker subject. The documents are super clear that by reading, you'll be able to easily understand and practice. Okay. So you can see this is ready. So once it is installed, the verification, as you know, it is Docker --- version. So this is the version you are practicing, guys. Docker 1.13.1. So did I install licensed version or did I install free version, guys? Which one did I install? I hope these are all small things, you know it. This is a free. This free version in the Docker, so generally we call it as community edition. Community edition. Okay, fine. So this is the installation stuff and this is the verification stuff and you're supposed to get expected output like this. Now, very interesting about the Docker is The moment you install the Docker, you have to start its services, guys. So you need to check this. These are a sequence of the steps you need to do. I clear the screen. To check the Docker service. Service Docker status. Is it running or is it not running, guys? Tell me. Is this Docker is running or not running? Not running. The question comes is how come you came to know it is not running? See, I fired the command here and I'm getting the lines like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 lines I got it. In which line number it is telling you or trying to help you that it is not running? Which line number? Because some of you guys don't know this. That is the reason I'm trying to stress. Which line number? Line number 4. You have to focus on line number 4 who do not have knowledge on finding the status. Please focus on the line number 4 from top. So let's say this is a 1, 2, 3, 4. You need to check the line number 4 always. It starts with active and you'll get some value here. Inactive. Inactive means this is not running. So what you have to do? You have to start it. What is a command? Tell me guys, what is a command? I hope you are doing your Linux classes. I'm not sure you have done with this concept or not. So service Docker start. This is a command which will start the services. Now, what is the use of service, guys? Do you know what is the use of service actually, first of all? Quicker. So service is like an on off button. You have to imagine like an on off button. Though you install the application, it will not work until the service is on or service is running. So it is like a button, on off button kind of thing. Okay. If the service is running, application will work. The service is off, application will not work. That's it. So it is like an on off button, control button. So we made the application up. Then that is what demand is. Now I want to make this application to enable by default at boot time. So what happens is if you restart the machine now at this point of time, if I restart the machine, or let's say if I come back tomorrow and I log in into the machine and I'll see again the Docker says not running. So that means each reboot, what happens is the status will move from start to the stop and it will not run. To overcome this problem, even if you restart the machine, the services should automatically come up. So if that is your intention, then you have to do this. Please write this. There's a command called check config. Check config Docker on. That's it. So if you fire this command, what happens is check config is a command, application name you need to type, and on or off you need to type here. The moment you type on or off, I said on, what happens is even if you restart the machine, the service is going to come up automatically. If it is off, it will not come. So now what is the difference? How come you know it is on or off, enabled or not? Again, the same command. You see the difference, guys? Again, the same. Here now you need to focus on the third line. Earlier, the third line was disabled here. And here the third line is now enabled. You see the difference? Very, very important, guys. These are all small things that you should be aware of being as a DevOps engineer. So whether it is enabled at boot time or not, by looking into the third line, this, because you have 3 values here, guys. This is first value, this is second value, and this is third value. That's it. So you need to focus on second value. If it is enabled, and that means even if you restart the computer, it will work. So that's the logic. Clear the screen. So are we clear on this part? Confirm? Confirm, guys. So the moment you install the Docker, you have to take care of starting the services enable at boot time. Okay. The next most important thing is this can be a question in the interview case, because this was one of the questions I faced in one of the interviews, and generally students also face this. So how, see, they will create a scenario for this, because this question is not straight. This is a scenario based question. What is that scenario? So the scenario looks like this. I logged in as root and I installed Docker. That means I logged in as a root and I installed Docker, and for me, it's working. That's fine. Okay. But for my, or let's say one of my colleague in the office, or let's say some user, but somebody from your team logged in with his name, maybe John or Smith, whatever it is, name could be. They logged in, and for them, Docker is not working. What is not working? Docker commands, guys. Specifically, Docker commands will not work. If he tries any Docker commands, it will not work for him. But when you log in, it will work for you. If you're logged in as a root only. Clear? You understood the scenario now? The scenario can be super easy. So for you, the Docker commands are working, and the same guy logged into the same server as you, and for him, the Docker commands are not working. The simple reason is, please write this. Docker, when it is installed, it will create a group, guys, Linux group called Docker root. This is a group it will create. Okay. Like Telegram channels. So I am creating, imagine some group, unless I add you, you may not be able to enjoy the rights of, or you cannot work with your channel there. Likewise here, or Docker, once it is installed, it will create its own channel or group, call it as Docker root group. So unless you add that user, let's say John, into that group, what is that? Docker root group, the commands will not work. So that means if the John says that his Docker commands are not working, the first doubt should be whether John is added to the Docker root group or not. So that's the first doubt you need to check. So that means you need to make sure that John is added to that group. Second, the John should have sudo power. Sudo power, guys. Anybody working with the Docker servers, they need to, their ID need to have sudo power. Am I clear on this point? So what is sudo? What is the full form of sudo, guys? Linux knowledge, tell me. I think sudo is done in your classes. In your Linux classes, what is sudo? I'm not asking about Ludo game, guys. I'm asking about sudo game. Super user do or switch user do. Okay, the full forms are super user do or switch user do. Okay, which super user do or switch user do. Now, what is this sudo stuff?